The Final Fantasy XIV collab is back, and with it comes the two units that we initially got at the beginning of the game, Y'shtola and Thancred. Now this is going to be like my typical should you pull video, except you don't need to pull Y'shtola, she's free, and Thancred you can actually get without spending any Vizier. So I'm going to rename this a should you build video, and we'll talk about a little bit how you can get those shards for both units and whether or not it's worth spending your rainbow rocks, etc. on them. So when you log on this upcoming Wednesday, you will get Y'shtola for free, and you'll be able to get her shards via the shop spending Gil, not Vizier. At least that's how it was in the first iteration of this event. And then you can also get her shards through summoning with event medals and currency. So you can max her for free. It's just going to cost you rainbow shards, or later on down the road we are going to get a substitute for MR rarity and lower that you can use instead of the rainbow shards. So if you want to wait on that, there really is no reason that you can't max her. It's not a matter of Vizier at all. Now for Thancred, you can pull him with the event tokens as well, and again that you just farm those and you can get them the tickets from different achievements, and you can also buy him with the medals from the event. At least you could again in the first one, but they've mentioned already in the shop that he is going to get a some sort of a way to purchase him outright as well. So both of these units are attainable, and you really just need to look at them to see whether they're worth building right now. And they are both getting upgrades from their first iteration from the beginning of the game, so that's very exciting as well. So before we get into the video here, we have to thank War of the Visions Calc for all their information. That's where I get all the stats and stuff for the video, so thank you so much to them. Okay, so Y'shtola is an awesome character, one of my favorites, and I'm so psyched that she's back and that she gets a little bit of an upgrade. So let's take a look. So she is kind of like a black mage, but she gets her own job called Sorceress, and then she has white mage and green mage, and she is MR. Her stats are pretty MR. They're like launch MR stats. It's very concerning. Her magic is super low, but otherwise, you know, not much to look at here. She does get a increased, like a upgraded master ability. So she already had the increased TP 15%, the increased acquired AP 30%, which on a mage is not as nice. I mean, it is good. So if you use buffs at the beginning of a match, you're going to get more AP. You go into the match and hopefully you don't run out of AP, but you'd rather have decreased AP consumption than increased AP acquired for a mage. But she does get magic resist penetration 30%, which is really awesome. Like that's honestly such a cool master ability. And then her board gives her luck, which she needs, don't get me wrong, but she really needs magic as well. So she's definitely a PvE unit. Taking a look at her resistances, it's pretty standard. She's a fire unit, so she will be resistant to ice and weak to water. And then she's strong against Charm, Petrify, and Frog, and weak against Doom. And her resistances for damage types are really bad, except for magic, but otherwise, I mean, it doesn't really matter. Look at her HP, she's not going anywhere. And then her TMR also it's tough. At the beginning of the game, we had no resources. It was really hard to craft. We were starting from scratch, and to farm multiple staffs or even one good staff, that wasn't going to happen overnight. So picking up this free TMR with all the, you know, the shards costing gold and all that was really good. It was an awesome investment, and now it's not as much. There's so many TMR staffs. There's people have been able to craft multiple staffs. This TMR has dropped off in a major way. If you are a new player starting for this collaboration, then don't hesitate to max her. She's going to be amazing for leveling your account and starting out, just to get that max unit and get this TMR under your belt as well. I think that's really cool. So if you are a new player, this is definitely worth it. But if you're an experienced player, it's probably not worth your time if you haven't done it already. However, everybody who plays Final Fantasy XIV knows all about the real end game, which is glamoring your characters. And we are actually going to get a glamour update at some point where you can make your weapons look like other weapons. So if you love the Nightseeker staff and you want to pick it up now, later on you can make your Skull, your Medina, whoever, you can make it look like they are using the Nightseeker even if they are not. So that's a really cool update, and hopefully we get that sooner than later. So despite her her low stats, Y'shtola actually has a pretty incredible kit, and with better stats, she'd be a pretty amazing unit. So with her passives, she gets her own special Enochian, which is going to increase her magic. It's the same as magic up level 1, but then she gets some pretty good skills from her subs. Her counters, she gets Mana Font, which can increase her AP. Again, that's really cool for a mage to be able to get some AP back. Again, she probably won't survive to use this. This would be better on other units, but it is still a cool ability to have. And then you get your regenerator, which is great in the tower. For her sorceress skills, she's going to get Scion's Fire, which is a small damage ability. Ethereal Manipulation can move her to a target panel and then increase the CT of your allies so it can speed them up. This is a really cool ability in manual. And then Swift Cast will actually make all of her spells go 1 tick faster for 3 turns. Xenoglossy is a pretty big damage single target spell at a reasonable AP cost, and then Scion's Fire Rise is her AoE ability. And then if you sub her sorceress, you will get Sharpcast, which is a massive magic boost, and she needs that. Like if you want her to deal damage, she absolutely has to use that, and if it wears off, then she drops off a lot. And then Foul is one of the biggest cases for her being a great PvE unit. It's just a massive AoE, and that's so good. It's actually pretty strong too. So if she's able to Sharpcast and then start fouling in your PvE maps, then she could be a pretty good farmer. So again, please take it with a grain of salt when I say, you know, if I say she's not great in certain ways, because she really is viable in PvE, in the tower, in farming, in all sorts of content like that, but she's just not going to be a PvP unit. I don't want to dress her up like she's some amazing unit. Her kit is really great though. It's so cool, and I wish that we could have this kit on a better statted unit. Alright, so for White Mage, it's all your typical White Mage stuff, but it's really good. Like, she gets Curata, and she also gets Holy, she gets her Protect and Shell. So she has the AoE for farming, she has Holy for a guaranteed hit, which could be really good in the tower. It can be really good in PvP as well. And then she gets all your usual utility that a White Mage will get, so really good sub job. And then Green Mage, again, you get Vitalize, you get D-Shell, D-Protect, Barfire, Dispel, all these great skills. And again, so much utility in PvE, and possibly, she actually could be like a good class match unit with better stats because of the amount of utility that she could bring. But without those stats, I don't think it's going to be possible. Next, we'll take a quick look at some comparisons for Y'shtola, and we'll start with Medina, who was the big comparison when the game came out, and then we'll also look at Skull, who is our latest big mage, and you can see the magic stat just steadily increases across the screen. Although Medina does get 30% in her master ability, all 3 units get the 30% passive as well. Skull gets 2 of them, but Skull also gets magic in his master ability, so Y'shtola really can't keep up with these other 2 units in terms of magic power. Even though she gets that sharp cast buff, it's still not really enough. So just to give you an idea of where she is, and then her dexterity, her luck, her agility, she just really loses out on all the stats, and it's a shame she was a launch MR unit, so obviously her stats are a little bit lower, but it really doesn't do her justice as what a powerful character she is in Final Fantasy XIV. And now we've reached Thancred, who is a super interesting 100 cost unit. You heard that right, his shards are double cost, and that must mean he's pretty good, right? So let's take a look. He's light unit, he has a Gunbreaker original job, and then Dragoon and Red Mage, which doesn't make any sense that he has Red Mage, because he can't use magic, at least when he's a Gunbreaker in Final Fantasy XIV. I'm not going to go any further into the story, but he can't use magic, so I don't, whatever. Anyway, he uses cloth, not armor, just so you know, and then otherwise, yeah, you can see he's 100 cost. His stats, well, HP's pretty good, AP's fine, attack, that is low, magic is irrelevant, it should be 0, dexterity is very, very low, luck is pretty okay, and then agility is not so great, and he gets a little bit of defense. Now, Thancred is going to get a second master ability, just like Gilgamesh did, and I didn't actually see it in the notices, so what I'm going to show you is the master ability that Japan got added on, and I don't know that this is actually the master ability that we're going to get, so take it with a grain of salt. So his original master ability was 10% increase in HP and increased slash attack 10. And then if we get the same master ability as Japan got, then you get another 20% HP and another 10 slash attack. And it's also going to upgrade his blasting zone skill. So blasting zone is his most powerful attack, and it had a charge time. So this is also before units would not use skills with charge times if they weren't going to hit. So he would charge his blasting zone, and we couldn't turn skills off either. He would charge his blasting zone, and the person would move, and he would miss, and it would just ruin him. But now it's not going to have a cast time. It's just going to be a really powerful attack. And then he gets more attack from his board node, which is good, but it's not enough, and we'll talk about why. So this slide is going to be where Thancred really shines, because first of all, he's a light unit, which means he's weak to dark. Well, he's not. He actually doesn't have a dark decrease in resistance. However, he does have the innate dark weakness, which means that, you know, he's going to do less damage to dark units, and they're going to deal more damage to him. And I have a video about that if you don't know about the innate dark or the innate elemental strengths and weaknesses. But in terms of the actual like stats, he doesn't have a dark weakness, which is really solid for a light unit. And then his resistances, paralysis and immobilize, and then he's weak to charm. And then here's the big part. So his damage type resistance is he has 20% slashing, 5% pierce, 35% striking, 20% projectile, and then he's massively weak to magic. But that's really good. Like, those resistances are super high. They're great starting points for a lot of things, and it gets better on the resistance front as well. And then his TMR is really good too. It is a massive HP boost. It's a cloth, so a lot of units can equip it. They get defense, they get evade, and they get increased light resist 15, which is a pretty big value on a TMR. And you can put this on, you know, on Rain to give him some defense and some HP. And then make him strong against light. You could put this on a lot of units. This is definitely a really solid TMR. Now for his passives, they're good and bad. So Camouflage is a passive that gives you 15% missile resist. Then he gets jump +1. Nebula is a passive that gives you 15% pierce resist. So already he can get massive levels of missile resist, and then he can make his pierce resist pretty respectable. And that's pretty great. Then he gets initial AP up, which is so cool on a melee unit. HP up is fine. He actually has good HP, so that would be good for him. And then Mage's Protection, he can make his crippling weakness to magic a little bit better. But I mean, I just think you lean into it and just not fight against magic units or have a magic tank or something, because whatever, like he's gonna be weak to magic. Now, have you noticed that he doesn't have a aggressive or an attacking passive? Because I did, and that's a huge problem because, again, his attack is low. So he gets 20% attack from his board, and then he doesn't get a self-sacrifice. He doesn't get like a 20% attack boost from some sort of a passive. He's just stuck at this low attack value. And yes, he gets that slash attack up from his master ability, but it's just not enough because people are getting their damage type attacks up from their passives as well. So he really does miss a lot of the damage that you would normally get from a DPS. So that means he must be a tank, right? Well, more on that later. As for his counters, he gets Jugular Rip, which is the best named counter in the game, and it is actually just a regular counter. Dragon's Blade is a very nice counter to absorb HP. And then Magic Reflex. This is just what I would run if you're going up against magic opponents, because then who cares about his magic resistance? If he can just dodge all magic attacks, you're good to go. Now let's take a look at Thancred's original job, Gunbreaker, and see how it stacks up. Keen Edge is a small damage attack that hits twice, and it has a low AP cost, so that's going to be really good for chaining and raids. No Mercy is a slash attack buff that's pretty good. Super Blide is a barrier that consumes your own HP, but then gives you a 50% damage reduction, and that's just damage, so that's also a very good skill. Blasting Zone won't have the casting time anymore. It's just a big damage skill with a not too high AP cost. And then Rough Divide is a move and attack skill that has a low AP cost. Burst Strike is going to be another low AP cost, but, you know, decent damage. And then he has 2 buffs. Heart of Stone will give 25 defense to an ally for 3 turns, and Aurora will give a regen to an ally for 3 turns. So if you pair him with a tank, he can give that tank 25 defense, which seems really good. And then also putting regen on people, that's pretty nice too. You might notice that he does not have any sort of hate generation, which means it's Vow of Love or nothing for this guy. You could use him similarly to Dwayne in that you put Vow of Love on him, and then he's gonna divert the enemy for a couple of turns, and then the rest of your team's gonna come in and be open to fire. So with those resists, maybe he can do it, and with that super Belied Barrier, he could be used in that role, but he could also be used to be paired with a tank to buff them up, or just be put into a bruiser team in general. Taking a look at his Dragoon sub, he's going to get Horizontal Jump, which is the most appetizing of the skills, and then Dragon Standard is always good for live PvP, and then Jump and Dragon Skin are both solid skills as well. Red Mage, which he shouldn't have, he does get some utility here. Resistance Break, again, is a really good raid skill, so it's good that he has that. And then Asuna is not bad for a PvE skill, and then otherwise you're not going to be doing any healing or damage dealing with him. This would have been a really cool Paladin sub, and then he could have been a tank, but whatever. His Limit Burst is... oh wait. 100 cost unit. You are... Collab. Oh, he doesn't have a Limit Burst! What? On to some comparisons. I'm not going to compare him to any tanks because he's not a tank. Instead, I'm going to compare him to other damage dealers because that's going to be his role. I mean, he's going to be a bruiser. He's not going to die easily, but he's not going to be a main tank, at least not without some hate generation. So I'm going to compare him to Cecil, and I'm doing this to show you how weak Thancred is. I'm sorry, Thancred. So Thancred has 275 attack. He was a launch unit as well, and Cecil has 301 attack. Thancred has no passives that increases attack. Cecil has the self-sacrifice for 60% increase in attack. And then we're going to go one step further, and this is a fair comparison. Thancred is a 100 cost unit. Dwayne is a 100 cost unit. Dwayne has 367 attack. Thancred has 275 attack. Dwayne can increase his attack with his passives, Thancred cannot. So you can really see here that, yes, Thancred gets a bunch of slash attack from his master ability. He has a active skill, a TP skill that increases his slash attack, and that's all really good. But he just doesn't get the attack stat that these other units are getting, and you really need to know that going in. So should you build Y'shtola? Well, she's got a lot of PvE utility, Holy, Green Mage sub, lots of farming potential with Foul. She's free, her shards cost gold, so I mean, yeah, you probably should just build her. And then the cons, if you really want to look at it, her magic is low, even for an MR. She's squishy, and her TMR has been power crept, but I don't know, just collect her shards. So for Thancred, he has amazing resistances. His team buffs could make for a great pair with the tank, and then he's got 2 hit attack and resistance break for PvE chaining. But his attack value is so low. He's got no hate generation. He's got no defense generation. If you were to put Vow of Love on him, he would just have that that super Belied skill. And then he has no offensive passives, although he does get a lot of slash attack. So I'd really like to see an upgraded master ability for global where Thancred gets a boost in his attack stat. And if he gets that, he's going to be someone you're going to want to watch. So at the end of the day, if we're going to look at these 2 units, I mean, Y'shtola, you probably already have her built if you started from the beginning of the game. If you didn't, just collect her shards, max her when we get the materials later on that you could substitute for rainbow shards, and you won't be disappointed in that. She's just a really fun unit with a unique kit, which I didn't appreciate when the game came out because everything was new to me, but now that we have so many black mages, it's so cool to have her that have these these unique skills that nobody else has. And then for Thancred, for the most part, I think people shouldn't build him, and that's the thing. So you shouldn't spend Visior to try to chase him. You shouldn't spend Visior to try to max him unless you're one of the people that, I have him at LB2, I have him at LB3, 4, whatever, and you want to finish him. You can probably do that without spending Visior. You can probably get him and raise him to a certain level without spending Visior. If you have to spend Visior on him, that is where I think you need to probably skip him, because it's a lot of Visior for a double cost unit that his stats just aren't quite good enough for the current meta, and that's just my opinion. But let me know what you think in the comments, because I know that lots of people love Final Fantasy XIV. Lots of people love these characters. I love these characters. I have Thancred. I have him at LB0, and I might actually look at raising him. And I'm going to tell you right now, the reason that I would raise him is because I love Final Fantasy XIV and I love Thancred. But if I was going to look at this objectively, I don't think it would be a good idea to build Thancred, at least not right now. So hopefully in the future we'll get more Final Fantasy XIV collabs, we'll get new units or you know, better Y'shtola, please. But otherwise I think that this is a banner that you can skip and start saving for you know, the better units that are coming out, the EX jobs, whatever you wanted to do. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.